of the crop.
Who the f*** is that guy?
I'm it off at you.
I'm better than you. And you know it.
Isn't it free stuff?
This is The Law. Live audio wrestling with the latest news, info, and interviews from the world of pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, and the best of combat sports worldwide. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Tidwell and Bradie Whetham.
Well, there it is again, and ladies and gentlemen, you hear it. The music can only mean one thing. That means that it's time for us to bring you yet again another installment of The Law Live Audio Wrestling, both in its audio form and for our YouTube subscribers. You can go check that out in its video form as well. I'm your host, Chris Tidwell, and joining me, as always, get that drop.
It's me. It's DDP, Drickus Duplessis. No, it is not. It is little Bradie Whetham. And thank you, Chris, for welcoming me back to The Law, Live Audio Wrestling. I'm doing it from my home this time.
Well, it's a good thing. I mean, we don't know which home it is. Could be the summer home, could be the winter home, could be the vacation home, could be all kinds of them with you. I mean, nobody really knows anymore because you're all over the place. You are like a high-flying, wheeling, dealing, kiss-stealing, limousine-riding son of a mother.
No, I just like I like moving. I like changing environments. I'm just one of those guys. But I wanted to do it from home instead of the studio this week because I wanted to get intimate with you.
Well, I think that's a different show altogether.
Oh, yeah, wrong.
Thank you very much. But listen, it has been a heck of a weekend as far as the intimacy goes, because we did have UFC 297. We're going to talk about that today. That's crazy. The fallout from that. What happens next to these guys? And of course, we've got the Royal Rumble coming up less than a week away right now. And we really don't know, outside of two matches and 4 or 5 competitors for each one of the Royal Rumble matches themselves, the men's and the women's matches, people who have declared themselves up to this point. There's 30 people in each one of these matches, and we have
60
5
competitors, and we don't know who else is coming.
It's fantastic. There's going to be some rumors. We'll talk about some of those people showing up there. And then on a little bit of a serious subject, we're going to talk about the problem with injuries as it relates, because a specific injury to one Seth Rollins definitely screwed up some plans for the WWE going into the Royal Rumble. So we're going to talk about that a little bit too. And is this a problem that is becoming more and more increasingly worse for some of these competitors, some of these performers? So we're going to check all of that out. We're going to talk some smack as usual. But, I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.
And to hear from some of our sponsors.
Yeah.
And when we get back, we're going to kick this whole thing off. What do you say, Bradie?
Let's pay some bills.
Are you in the market for a used vehicle for your family or business? North Toronto Auction hosts public auctions twice a month, and everyone's invited. Hundreds of cars, trucks, SUVs, commercial vehicles, and heavy equipment are available. Plus, travel trailers, motorcycles, snowmobiles, ATVs, and more. View the entire selection at NorthTorontoAuction.com. Bid online or bid in person. Bid on items from government agencies, financial companies, fleet managers, car dealers, and public consigners. For more information, visit us online at NorthTorontoAuction.com.
Hey, did you know that Saturday, February 24th, Destiny World Wrestling returns to Oshawa and the Children's Arena for Destiny's Reckless?
Is that the event featuring the indie god himself, Matt Cardona?
You bet it is.
I heard he's not going to be there alone. I heard Steph DeLander's showing up. I heard Fight or Flight is showing up. Vanna Black, Tara Zepp, Lindsay Dorado, and a whole bunch more.
Man, you better get your tickets now. They're on sale at www.destinywrestling.ca.
Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button to get all the latest from the Law, Live Audio Wrestling. Now back to the show.
And we are back on the Law, Live Audio Wrestling. And if you could see myself and Chris, what we were doing during those commercials, you would disown us. Now, okay, trying to get serious for a second. We didn't talk about who we have on the show this week besides us.
We didn't. And because I was going to get to that after we did that first part, because everything surrounding this entire show, if you saw the title of the show, it's What's Next.
Yes.
And so what's next is a big thing, because we're going to talk about what's next for the competitors coming out of UFC 297. We're going to talk about what's next about, with these stars that are injured. And then our guest this week is none other than former WWE superstar known as Tyler Breeze, now just known as Breeze. And we're going to find out from him what's next, what's going on with him. So that's going to be one hell of a discussion that we have for you audio listeners. Don't worry, seamless. Boom, no problems. For you people that are joining us over on YouTube, by the time you are done listening to all of this, that part of the show is going to be up in its entirety. All you got to do is back right out, click on that next thumbnail, and you'll be able to watch it all. Now,
yeah, go subscribe to us on YouTube at the Law Live Audio Wrestling.
There you have it. So, first and foremost, Bradie. We have to pull this up, okay? Because this was our picks for 297. Yeah. UFC 297 happened this past weekend in Toronto, in a sold-out crowd that brought in apparently somewhere, about $8 million US or something like that, right? Yeah. Apparently it was the biggest and best ever until the next one is. I don't know if this was the best one ever, but as we talked about it when we did our fight predictions, this is definitely kind of par for the course for what the cards seem to be when they come to Canada, because it doesn't seem to matter. Seem to matter. You don't have to pull out a UFC 300 caliber card. You don't have to pull out this is a definite pay-per-view, but you don't have to, because Toronto and Canadian fans are just that hungry for this type of entertainment.
All week, the presser, the weigh-ins, the actual event itself. This is the most rabid Toronto fans.
Yeah.
They were screaming F Justin Trudeau throughout the entire night in the arena. Like,
is that what that was?
Yeah, that was F Trudeau chants. You know what it was. If you watch the Fight Companion here on YouTube, or they were kind of flabbergasted as well that was actually happening. Like, think if you go anywhere, any other country, you go to the US and they're in Vegas, and out of nowhere,
it happened. Yes, with the "Let's Go Brandon" chants.
Oh, I do. I guess that's the same thing, isn't it?
It's the same thing, but this is the greatest part, and this is about the only thing that I'm going to say is you have an entire group of people that are looking at the government running their country like a communist state, and yet are free to go out there and say speech like that against said government. It's fantastic world we live in, ladies and gentlemen. I am here for all of it.
It's eating itself.
Yeah, it really is.
Speaking of eating, there were some bonuses handed out last night, but there wasn't a lot of bonuses handed out last night.
No.
And why was that, Chris?
Well, because there wasn't a whole lot that was bonus worthy. Let's be perfectly honest about this. Some of the fights, listen, you can take a look here if you're watching this on YouTube, and you can see how we did and who won and who didn't win. And I think that out of our picks, nobody won any money, but this was a difference of one fight between us and how well that we did on our picks. Yeah. None of us saw the fact that Mike Malott was gonna get taken into deep waters after doing, like, this was basically a throwback to Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva, where it was just one-sided for the entire match, and then something happens. A banana peel gets thrown out there, and stuff goes crazy.
I was on my balcony smoking a cigarette at the end of that fight, and I heard down the street, and I actually live in the same city that Mike is from. And I could hear it collectively down the street. Fuck!
Yeah.
That's how many people lost their money. You could literally hear it in the streets of his hometown.
The fight that everybody thought was going to be the fight of the night, the one, the unsung fight of all of this was, of course, the Allen Evloev fight that couldn't have been any further from the prediction.
But props to both of those guys, though, because that was a dogfight in that last round.
The last round was a dogfight, right? There's no doubt about it. And I mean, you're looking at a guy like Evloev who's got 18, 19 wins in a row right now.
Win. Yeah,
18th win in a row, and 18 wins, 24 by decision out of those 18, because that's how long they've lasted. Yeah. But he keeps winning. The problem is you have to ask yourself, where do you go from here with this? Because how do you work yourself into any kind of title contention if you're just putting out these decisions? Crowds don't like, listen, there's some crowds that you can go to, Bradie, and they don't even like when the guys or the girls are on the ground for more than 10 seconds, and they're like, stand them up, we want blood.
But that's Toronto. They want death. And the guy, and Curtis was saying it, Sean was saying it, even Drakus was saying it. These people want to see people die. That's just the Toronto crowd.
I don't even know if it's so much just the Toronto crowd. I think it's a lot of fans, that go to these events clearly it's a gladiator moment.
Mm-hmm.
How far away are we from just watching executions on pay-per-view at this point? Because at what point is enough? Right?
We're not reaching the gladiator states of UFC. That's not happening. Go over to one if you want to see that kind of stuff, because those guys are kicking heads off into the front row. So,
do that while you can, because who knows how long that company's going to be around for.
They're running a lot of events right now.
So here's my question, though, is that we saw a new female women's champion, bantamweight champion, crowned last night, right, in Raquel Pennington. Props to her, but that fight was...
Both of them lost. Both of them lost. Raquel should have never been able to walk away with a belt when you completely disregard 4 rounds of what your coaches are trying to tell you to do. No. Let's call it like it is. The last 30 rounds, she has not listened to her coaches. Yeah, okay. No, perfect. You are 100% right. This girl somehow has a title. This young lady, and she is a hell of a fighter. When it comes to Raquel, she is a really good. We're not taking anything away from her skills. You can hear her coaches pleading like someone just stole their firstborn and is running away with it, saying just get off the cage, let her up.
Yeah,
and I don't know. Silva, it didn't do much of a good job of really impressing anybody last night either. So
her cardio went to the crapper after that. After about halfway through that 3rd round, it was done.
It was the rear naked attempts. I think she just tried that too many times. She went to the well too many times, and it caught up with her in terms of cardio.
Yep. And you know what? Listen, when you run down that division, right? If you look at it right now, Juliana Pena is who should be next if she's able to fight. But outside of that, Ketlin Vieira, Irene Aldana, Holly Holm is the number 6 fighter at this point in that division.
This is the division right now where if Ronda decided to come back and go into this division again, she'd be fine.
Yeah.
This is the time for Ronda to come back. If she was ever going to come back right now and want to be dominant again, this is your opportunity now when you look at the top 10 in this weight division.
But I think you stand the chance right now, no matter what. If she were to do that, everybody's going to be like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. This entire division doesn't matter because the only reason it still exists is because Amanda Nunes walked away from it.
Yeah.
Right?
And Amanda Nunes is not coming back.
So even if Ronda were to come back and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to take over this division now. Well, guess what? It's only because Amanda Nunes allows it. That's
UFC
it.
300. UFC 300, you will see Ronda walk out.
Well, now let's talk about the main event, because that brings up a theory that I talked about.
Yep.
It brings up a theory that I talked about before when we did the fight predictions.
Smooth
and if you look closely, you can see that, it was DDP who ended up getting the decision in a fight that was a decent fight. Sean Strickland is a hell of a boxer. That jab was destroying DDP's face.
Yeah.
And then Sean Strickland's face gets turned into hamburger a little bit. And it turns into a all-out dogfight in that last round. Because, listen, I don't know about you, but I had it 2-2 going into that last round. First round, definitely. Some could argue the second round went to DDP or it went to Strickland. I had it 2-2 going into that fifth. There's no doubt about it that DDP started to find his groove later on in that fight. So I think that might have had something to do with how the judging was scored in this. If it had gone the other way, I wouldn't have been disappointed in that either, because it was clearly such an even match. Even the bookies knew that this was such an even match.
Oh, yeah.
This was a pick 'em match all the way down the line. But of course,
right? It's not the coaches, it's not the fighters, it's not the judges. It's Drake.
Well, listen, the curse is real. Is Drake the new Bambino?
Drake is the Bambino.
He is the Bambino.
He's the Jersey Jinx. He's the Jersey Jinx, dude. You always bet again. Like when I seen the main event come, and they do this strategically now, where they don't tell you until the boys are almost about to touch gloves that Drake dropped the bet and where he dropped it, because then you're like, oh, son of a bitch.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. And Drake was in the building.
Drake was in the building to make it even worse.
Unbelievable.
The 6 jinx.
Right?
Can we trademark that 6 jinx before someone else does, and just put Drake's face on it? Sell t-shirts. 6 jinx. Man, I'm salty. You can tell it's not like I've ever met the guy before in real life.
Well, he's clearly never learned his gambling skills during his time at Degrassi.
None of us do.
Unbelievable. And again,
all child actors turn into degenerate gamblers. Believe me, they do.
Shoot.
Take my word for it.
That is a definite shoot, ladies and gentlemen. But
okay,
so
here's
the
on
question.
From Drake kiboshing our main event. It was a good fight. People are pissed at it. People are they always find something to be angry at. I personally thought this could have been a draw, but either way, I would have been happy. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and the question is, the question that I have for you though is, where do you go from here? What do you do? Where does Sean Strickland go from here? I think that there's really, because he's still at the top of that division. And the problem is that division here. Let me read this down to you here.
Let's go.
So you have the number 2 guy is now the champion. So you would have to think that Strickland takes his spot, because the number 1 guy in that division is still Israel Adesanya at this point. Or does Izzy move down to the number 2 and Strickland takes over that number 1 division?
Either
that number
works.
1 spot.
Either or.
In the number 3 spot is Robert Whittaker. Number 4, Jared Cannonier. Number 5, Marvin Vittori. Number 6, Paulo Costa, Brendan Allen, and Roman Dolidze. Hamzat at number 9.
I was just going to say, did you not see that Hamzat is at number 9? He's only ever had 2 fights at this weight division.
and
that make any sense?
automatically, and the first person to tweet out, "See you at 300." Now, for anybody who believes that Khamzat Chimaev is going to be fighting DDP at UFC 300, I mean, listen, just send your money to Drake to bet on it, okay? Because
I thought it could have been a real thing, but I think it's Ramadan or something like that. So he's not going to fight during April. That's against his religion, I believe.
Listen,
I don't know enough about that.
It all really comes down to what happens over the next couple of days, because DDP said in the presser afterwards that he's hanging out for a few days in Toronto, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a matter of how fast is he healed up. Is it all just superficial? Is it all just like swelling and superficial stuff where he's just got to take that immediate time, that allotted time that they're supposed to take off? Because if that's the case, we could be seeing something being set up right now that would bring Izzy back. The story is already there. And if you can get DDP healthy enough to where he feels like he can do a camp, you've got DDP and Izzy for UFC 300, which would be fantastic. Now, you could ask, Dana could be thinking this, Hunter could be thinking this, all of the guys could be thinking this. Whether or not it's a done deal, nobody knows. If you were to ask Dana right now, he would say that's his expressions last night to everything was, that is an effing lie. You're an effing liar, and that's that.
Well, somebody's like, can you give us a little bit of a hint? And his response was,
no.
Like,
what did you think was going to happen? Here's the thing, and I've said this before, watching these pressers. It's one of the reasons
but it's the Canadian press makes it even worse, though.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Even worse. And it's one of the reasons that we choose to not go to these things.
Emphasis on the word choose.
It's because I have zero inkling to sit there and ask the, obligatory softball questions in that instance. And the problem is if you don't ask the softball questions, you know what you don't get? You don't get asked back to the next one. You don't get credentialed.
If I can be directly honest with everybody listening and without pulling the curtain back completely, I got an email from a very important publication that said, can you go cover this? Here's a camera. Yeah. And I faved the email.
Yeah.
No. So I'm supposed to ask Sean Strickland a question, and he turns at me and he goes, "You're part of the problem, man." I'm like, whoa. I'm from the law, live audio wrestling. I'm just want to know if you want to sit down and talk to Chris so we can kick in the head for an hour. Okay, so moving on from the UFC, 300 is on the horizon, 299 is on the horizon, 298 is on the horizon. This card, it looked lackluster on paper.
Yep.
It delivered lackluster in presentation, but 298 and 299 are so jacked up that I don't know if there's a chance for that to even happen. So the horizon of UFC looks great over the next couple months. I'm super stoked for that.
Here's the thing. 298 and 299 almost look too jacked up.
They're pretty jacked up.
Because at this point, now what do you do with it? Like, what's left for 300?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's left is here's your three biggest stars, ladies and gentlemen, in the UFC. It's Conor McGregor, it's Israel Adesanya, and it's John Jones.
Oh, I could argue O'Malley's up there now too, though.
O'Malley, not available.
299.
I'm talking about guys that are available.
Yeah.
That are available to fight. And those are arguably the three biggest names in the UFC.
There are so many rumors going around right now. They're like Ronda Rousey's training, Habib's training. Nope. There's so many, let's all just sit back. Like it's going to be Christmas morning when Dana makes the announcement.
Yeah.
And let's all be excited and happy for it because it's going to be big. We know that.
And you're going to watch it because it's going to be big.
But
listen,
three of those names that you just said are people that are either injured currently or coming off of injuries.
Not necessarily. I mean, Connor should be good to go. I think it's just a matter of waiting until the stuff comes out of his system.
No, he's mentally damaged. He's not getting any better.
and he's having fun promoting his forged stout ale, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
He's having fun.
He's
John
rocking
Jones,
a mustache.
John Jones injured. Izzy
Yep.
just decided to take some time off.
He
He's
said
like,
he has
nah.
some healing to do. He had some healing.
Of course.
Mentally.
And 100%. Listen,
Mentally.
the pressures of being a champion for as long as he was, right? I mean, who would want to do that? So now the question you have to ask yourself is, does he want to come back to possibly have to go through that all over again this quick, right? So these are all questions that we ask each other. And you think that these aren't questions that the UFC brass and in the offices aren't asking themselves?
Yep.
Of course they are. Of course they are. And they're going to give us a hell of a card. They're going to give us a hell of a show. And you know what? Even if it's not, we're going to watch it because we just watched one that they put on this past weekend in Canada. Everybody watched it anyway.
Is the definition of irony that it took so much coffee and cannabis to get through the event last night? Like, is that because coffee and cannabis is a Canadian thing? It was a Canadian
the three
event.
C's. The three
and you
C's.
you needed that to get through last night.
It's crazy.
All right, but speaking of injuries, we'll take a little step over from the world of MMA and go into the world of professional wrestling. Injuries seem to be at an all-time high over the past couple months.
Yeah.
And it's not just me. I think everybody's starting to see it. I think we found a list, a very long list of everybody who is currently on the injured list from every major company, whether that's TNA, AEW, WWE, New Japan. We have a list.
Now, you want to run this down now?
I'm going to let you do your proper delivery on people's names.
Let's talk about this for a second, because this is definitely a serious subject that seems to be getting more and more serious. There's no secret that injuries happen in the world of professional wrestling. I've broken my neck in the world of professional wrestling.
Same.
Right? This is just a thing. I've got shoulders that permanently dislocate all the time. I've got bones that crack. This is just the nature of the beast.
It is.
But these are injuries that are putting people on the shelf for long periods of time. Just this year alone, let's talk about this. Braun Strowman out. Dexter Lumis inactive. Eric of the Viking Raiders. Giovanni Vinci. Liv Morgan is out with a shoulder injury. Raquel Rodriguez, who, of course, mast cell activation syndrome. That's not necessarily an injury, but it has her out right now.
We'll add it to the list, though.
Sonya Deville, torn ACL. Seth Rollins, torn MCL. Charlotte Flair, torn ACL, MCL, and meniscus.
Yeah, that's
Dakota
insane.
Kai just had knee injury surgery, right? And rehabbing, sorry, not surgery. Rey Mysterio, surgery on his knee. Sheamus, shoulder, right? Alexa Bliss got pregnant, so she's on the shelf. Big E is still out with a broken neck.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It's been like
Robert
a year and a
Roode,
half, 2
Bobby
years.
Roode, fellow Canadian boy that I've known for many, many, many years. He just had to have fusion surgery, right? Tamina. Titus O'Neil says he's still healing up from a knee injury as well. Zion Quinn. Cora Jade, one of the most recent ones here, torn ACL.
Yeah.
Right? Sol Ruka, torn ACL of last year, still not back. Wendy Chu, Wes Lee, over in AEW. Adam Cole, I mean, we've seen him walking around with a boot still.
Yeah, he's still in a boot.
Britt Baker, Bandito, Chuck Taylor. Let's see, what do we got here? Jamie Hayter, Juice Robinson with a back injury.
Oh, yeah, the back injury. I forgot about that.
Keith Lee, still not cleared. Kenny
This
Omega.
Is insane. This is
Kenny
insane.
Omega out. Kota Ibushi, right? Ligament tear.
Oh, yeah. He had that.
Kyle O'Reilly with neck fusion, right? MJF. I mean, everything. You know, he's got a torn labrum. because he's been working
He's
so
out
hard.
with everything.
Right?
Okay.
Pac is out. Ray Phoenix is out. Sammy Guevara injured. Stu Grayson, Tay Mello in TNA, Killian King, Mark Andrews. It's crazy. And that's just the people that are currently under contracts right now.
Oh, now is this just because all these companies have so many workers, and it's just because there's so many people involved now that the numbers will look like they're bigger than they ever have been? Or is this a work style? Is this a style of work? Like, what's going on here? Scheduling?
I think it could possibly be a little bit from column A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
Right. This is an all of the above kind of thing right now. And this is one of the things that I talk about. And I've talked about this with other people. And I even talk about this a little bit later on with our guest this week, Breeze, former Tyler Breeze of the WWE. As much as the business has evolved, as much as the moves have gotten more dynamic over the years, more dangerous, the WWE, with their campaign with the "Don't try this at home," there's a reason for that, right? Because not everybody has a ring. And as you can see by this list, even in a ring that is put together by professionals that know what they're doing. And I'll say this, I will toot my own horn on this because I built rings. I've probably built some of the best rings in all of Canada. I'll go out on a limb and say it.
You have. I've bumped in rings. Believe me, it's the ring that's currently in rotation right now is one of the nicest rings I've ever been in.
Thank you. It's built by people that know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And these WWE rings built by people that know what they're doing. So it's not the equipment, because the equipment hasn't changed. If anything, the equipment has gotten more advanced over time. There was a time when you would have a Royal Rumble match, during those eras, those 80s, early 90s eras, when you had like your tugboats and typhoons and Hulk Hogan's, and like you had 37,000 pounds of man inside of this ring. And these rings were stiffened up to the hilt because they had to hold that kind of weight.
Gorilla used to say it. They've reinforced the ring for tonight's Royal Rumble.
Absolutely. And they have. They absolutely have. Which meant that there wasn't a heck of a lot of bumping because there's zero give on those ones. So fast forward to today, when we don't have that same style, when the style is changed in a way that people want to see more dynamic moves. People want to see more acrobatic stunts, so to speak. The problem is as much as that has happened, there's one thing that has never, ever changed. Equipment can get better, can be more advanced. Moves can be more intricate, can be more difficult, and can be more awe-inspiring when you watch them. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that never changes, it's human anatomy. And human anatomy is the base for doing all of these things. Knees don't get miraculously bigger over time. We're not morphing like that, okay? Necks don't get miraculously stronger over time. They actually deteriorate when you smash it up against, blunt force trauma objects and taking bumps and whatnot. So you have to ask yourself, are these people, are the performers, are they doing too much? I mean, if you're asking me, absolutely they are. Why? Why are they? I mean, I can tell you why I think, and it's something that we talked about earlier, Bradie. The fact that you have fans, for example, watching these UFC events, and they want to see blood. They want to see people getting as physical as they possibly can. Same reason that we go to see NASCAR races for the longest time. And I don't care about the faithfuls who are like, we want to see a good old race. No, for the majority of time, you went because you wanted to see a crash. That's what people want to see.
When you go to the local fall fair, the number one thing every single weekend, demolition derby.
All day long, right? Yeah. So the same thing is happening in pro wrestling, I think, where the fans themselves are like, we've seen that. Give me something better. Give me something newer. Give me something more crazy. Give me something that I haven't seen before. And the performers are in a position, I think, just in my opinion, they're in a position where they're like, I need to do more. I need to do something bigger. Because if I don't, well, then the guy sitting on the other side of the railing is going to start to think that he's on the same level as me. He's going to start to think that he can do what I do. And I've worked far too hard and far too long to get where I am to just make you believe that you can do it too. No. So I'm going to put my body on the line just for your entertainment.
So is that Sting's excuse? Is that Sting's excuse, or is Sting just going out with a bang? Like, is it one of those, because I'm back and forth on where I feel Sting is right now, where he's doing some of the, like he did a drop off of like a stage onto a table a couple weeks ago. Like, what are you doing, Sting? You don't need to do this stuff. You can go out there and tap someone with a bat and they'll pop the exact same way.
At this point, you have to ask yourself, is he going to actually go out with a bang? Or is he going to go out with a whimper? Or is he going to go out at all? Because at this point, it's almost like, it's not the road to WrestleMania. It's the road for Sting on whether or not he can get there to that final match.
He's going to end up stuff like Misawa if he doesn't, you know what I mean? He's already had an issue where when Seth gave him that power bomb 10 years ago in that corner, and his whole body just dropped, like his disc just compressed and it just dropped him. And it shut off every nerve in his spine for a second. You never thought that he'd be 10 years later taking bumps off the stage.
It's crazy if you think about what he's willing to put his body through at this point. Why is the question? He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. Now, this also leads to the point now. We know that the business it's an ego-driven business. Mm-hmm. Every single performer has at one point or another had the look at me attitude.
No.
Myself included.
Oh.
The problem is, even more so included. Could you imagine those little twerps that like start off as actors and then get into wrestling?
I quit a very successful career to go around Canada making $20 if I was lucky a night. I paid my dues.
No, you're dumb.
I'm so stupid.
Exactly.
If 40-year-old me could go back and talk to 18-year-old Bradie and just be like, here's the thing. It's stupid, but it's not. Somehow, even 20 years later, I'm doing a show on YouTube on a Sunday when I should be spending time with my beautiful family, right? Talking about the business that I don't understand why I even love it. And that's why I would have left being a millionaire as a kid with a full-time career as a TV actor to get into this. But it does go back to what you're saying about injuries. By the time I was given the green light, I was so broken I couldn't barely do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. We know the injuries that we're going to put our bodies through. Sometimes some people don't think that they're going to be as severe when they get started, but it could happen.
It's bad.
But then there's people that have been in the business for, 10, 15 plus years that have never had an injury and they're doing just fine.
The freaks of nature is what I like to call them. The Rob Van Dams of the world, the Eric Youngs, these guys who just they've went so long with these careers and just been able to kind of bypass these insane injuries that some people get.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is, again, there's still too many of these performers that aren't fortunate like that.
Yeah.
Not everybody can be a Brock Lesnar, right? Where you're just this freak of nature running gambit through the business. Majority of people are going to end up with some kind of an injury. So then you have to ask yourself, what's next? Where do we go from here? How do we stop this from happening?
Let's say there was there's a young worker listening, or a young wrestler or aspiring wrestler. What would be the advice that you'd give them right now if they were listening to it and you were to say, what would you say? What would you say?
I would say
about the work rate.
before you even think about starting to get into all of that flashy stuff, make sure that your bases are covered. Make sure that you have an education to fall back on, because this could all be taken away from you at the drop of a dime.
Mhm.
All of it. And if you can't walk when it's taken away from you, you're going to have a problem. So one thing that you've got to remember that you've got to do is you've got to go out there and you've got to learn how to be a base. You've got to learn how to have proper footwork. You've got to learn how to be in the right place at the right time all the time, no matter what time of the match it is. You've got to learn how to be there to support the person or people that you're in the ring with.
Mhm.
And if you don't have this, then you really have no business trying to learn how to do any kind of a 450 or, a shooting star, scorpion, death driver, moonsault, acai, breakfast bowl, burrito, whatever the hell it is. You have no business, because you're going to end up injuring yourself and you're going to end up injuring somebody else. And that's the other part of this. When we're talking about these performers that are getting injured right now, what about the people that they're in there with, right? What does this do to them? What does this do to their psyche? What does this do? Did it happen because of something they did? Are they responsible for putting this person on the shelf? Listen, I'm going to throw it out there to you guys, the fans, right? The people that pay their hard-earned money to go be entertained by folks like myself and Bradie, much better people out there in the world that do it. I'm going to throw this out to you. Maybe don't be so hungry. Maybe don't be so bloodthirsty. Maybe start getting more into the story. Now, if you can agree to do that, then maybe the wrestlers themselves can start investing more into telling the story, as opposed to just going out there and giving you that TikTok 30-second bing bang, thank you, ma'am match.
There is a solution for this. We as fans need to buy more merch. I'm telling you, hear me out. If we buy more merch,
okay.
Let's say a wrestler goes out and takes what you're saying, and they're an established person, and they switch for 6 months, and they just start doing the whole Hollywood Hogan method, right? The whole back rakes, eye rakes, stop taking bumps. 2, 3, finish with a bump, open with a bump, finish with a bump, right? Little bumper on either end of it. And you just buy more of their merch consistently. Like R-Truth is showing you what you can do. R-Truth is a perfect example of longevity. Now, good genes too, but a perfect example of longevity. Less is more. It's that old saying when you're in the ring. I used to say this as a ref when I'd get in there with 2 kids that you'd be scared. You could see the second that you'd look at them and they were like, they go blank. And I remember every time they get to the corner or they lock up, I'd be like, guys, slow down.
What?
Slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down.
I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean by that?
Everything. Slow down.
But I don't know how.
Slow.
But I'm over here now.
Guys, okay, take it home. Okay, take it home.
Yeah.
Take it
happens.
Home. Yeah, no.
It absolutely happens.
If you feel like you're going too slow, go even slower.
Listen, I've said it in matches myself while working with the person that I'm working with. Slow down. Where you got to be? Where you got to be? You know what? You want to know when the next match comes out? When we're done.
And the only person you're going to piss off is a promoter, which you're going to do anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, at the end of the day,
slow down.
What it comes down to is if you want to have any kind of longevity, you have to take care of your body. And the unfortunate reality is we're talking about people that some of these people might only be a couple of years into the business. Some of these people are like 10, 15 years into the business before they have these kinds of injuries happen to them. But you never know when it's going to happen. Right? Is the equipment going to change? No. Now the equipment's not going to change because we're at the point now because I don't honestly know what you could do to change it to make it any better. I don't, other than maybe surfaces and the type of padding. But the way that a ring is constructed, we're at the peak. We're at the peak of what we're going to be able to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trust me. I rack my brain looking at it all the time. How can I make this better? Right? What can I do to change this to make it better?
Give it
and
6
really
sides.
What I've done is I've come up with ways to make it different, not make it better. Listen, if I could figure out a way, and I've thought about this, Bradie, that 6-sided ring idea, I've tried to figure it out, how I can make this so that it still works like a proper ring, right?
Yeah.
But has that 6-sided ability, because that's always a thing. And anybody we've ever talked to about that ring has always said the same thing, right? Now, the problem is the reason a lot of workers, I think, say that same thing is because, anybody out there, go ahead, raise your hand. Raise your hand right now if you trained and you learned how to wrestle in a 6-sided ring. You didn't. You barely knew how to work around into a 4-sided ring. But you figured that out. And now all of a sudden you end up, oh, hey, guess what? We're just going to throw 2 more in here for you just to confuse the hell out of you. Because we're trying to create something new.
The guys who like the 6-sided ring, and I know some of the vets love the idea of it. They're just like, you adapt to it. It made it unique. It's great when you're, flipping the channels and you come across it, that kind of a thing. It is unique. And there's some guys that like working in it. But it is definitely a ring that you have to already be a prodigy.
Yeah.
You already got to be at the top level to be able to go to that and adapt to that perfectly.
And even then,
it's
so
what
you've done is you've also taken the entire dimension of it and you've made it smaller. And when you've made it smaller, everything becomes a little bit more compact and there's not as much give in the middle for when you're working around. So how do you compensate for something like that? Well, you try to make it softer so that you bump in it. Well, the problem, if you compensate like that to bump in it, what you're doing is you're using extra thick padding. And the extra thick padding is a problem because when you have guys running the ropes and running inside of a ring like that, it's like running on a pillow. And when you've ever run on a pillow before, you can twist your ankle pretty good. And that is an injury.
Try and do a baseball slide on that.
Yeah.
What it's like to do a baseball slide, even if the mat is not tied completely tight, you'll blow your knee out and put your leg right behind your head. So
absolutely.
Yeah, footwork and all that and perfect rings. A 6-sided ring, I think they probably did as much as they could do to make that thing as viable as it could be. But one of the really cool things, and this is a great segue into where we're heading, is I used to love when they would do their Rumble versions. And they would do that in the 6-sided ring. I always felt like that was better for a Rumble or a Battle Royal setting or a multi-man match. It just seemed like that was really cool and unique. So it'd be interesting to see if TNA even just brings it back again for one night. Speaking of Rumbles, let's do a quick little talk about the Rumble before we head off to the next sponsor and then come back and roll this ride out. But the Royal Rumble is coming up next week.
Yeah.
There has been a bit of a curveball thrown into the mix now with Seth Rollins being out and Vacant taking the belt again. So Vacant is one of the most prestigious champions of all time. Vacant has beaten the likes of Andre the Giant. Vacant has beaten the likes of Randy Savage. Vacant has now just beaten Seth Rollins and is champion. So do they make this Rumble for the world title, or do they leave Vacant with the belt until Elimination Chamber and decide and figure that all out then?
Well, I think you've got to, at some point, the obvious story for this, if you're asking me, is that this belt has to end up on CM Punk.
Oh, wow. You think it needs to end up on Punk?
Because that's the story coming back. The Punk Seth Rollins story is money. And I think that if you can get this belt onto Punk, let him run with it a little bit. And then when Seth comes back, there's the feud. There's the, Seth can be, you've been keeping this thing warm for me. Punk can be, we gave up on you. You were gone, and reverse the whole thing that he's been doing with him going to AEW.
Here is why I hope you are wrong, because there is not one mention of the new future world champion that is R-Truth. They have been given the blessing. Put the belt on R-Truth, ladies and gentlemen. He's here. It's there. Let's go. R-Truth into WrestleMania faces The Rock. Who's the head of the table?
Really?
No, but
not even close.
Okay. Not even close. But if we're going to go into actual reality here, I think the belt goes on Drew.
Well, see, the story there, I mean, still plays itself out too. That's the beautiful thing, is that like this kind of turned into a three-way story, the original story being with CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and the heat there. And then Drew kind of got thrown into that mix as well, which was a blessing, because not knowing obviously that Seth Rollins is going to get injured, and then boom, gets injured. Well, now what are we supposed to do? Well, you just kind of remove him from that three-way picture, right? And you've still got the story.
Don't forget that Cody Rhodes has been behind my couch the whole time saying, "Hey guys, me, hey."
Right.
Hey!
Well, I think that you move Cody up, and Cody gets himself involved with the idea of Roman Reigns. Cody and Roman is a great thing.
Is this the best professional wrestling event of the year? And I don't mean in terms of the card value. I'm talking about just the Royal Rumble itself. To me, this is WrestleMania.
Traditionally, Royal Rumble has been my favorite card of the year. Always.
It's the best.
Because of the surprise entrance for those matches, and just because of always like the work around the Royal Rumble has definitely changed, where it's gone from, go out there, find somebody, hit the ropes and stick to the ropes in the corners and off you go. Now it's go out there, hit your finisher on 4 different dudes, then find the ropes. Everybody's got to get their spot in first.
So when I was a kid, the Royal Rumble was like my version of finding a PWI magazine. So because I was primarily I was here in Ontario, right? And I lived out in the country. So I only had an antenna. So I could only watch WWF. There was nothing else outside, but I knew that there was other stuff that existed, Ric Flair, all that. So when Carlos Colon would enter the ring in a Rumble, and he's never been even heard or seen of before, Mil Mascaris runs down. It felt like opening up a PWI, because I got to see these stars or these people that were like, I'm like, who the fuck is this? Carlos, and his head's all gigged open like New Jack. I'm like, what is happening? Or who is it? But it made me research these people. Or when I did find a PWI, I was like, oh, that's Carlos Colon, who came into the 91 Rumble or whatever it was, 93 Rumble. He was 93. Right. But yeah. Anyway, I love the Rumble. I just love the surprises. You're right.
Here's the thing. As it stands, you've only got 5 or 6 people that have declared themselves for the Rumble. Mm-hmm. On the guy's side, you got Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Shinsuke, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, and Gunther.
Yeah.
That's it. That is about 24 people short, ladies and gentlemen. So where are they coming from? Right? On the women's side, Bayley, Nia Jax, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair. That's it. That's all you've had for this. So now let's talk about some of the surprises very quickly. I mean, the rumors are, who could show up for the men's Royal Rumble. Do you have anybody in mind that you would think is going to be showing up this year?
I'd love to see MJF, but I don't think that's not going to happen. And if you're going to go old legend, no, I don't care. Just give me somebody.
Rumor again has been, Sean Waltman is supposed to be there.
I'll take that.
Taker is supposed to be there that weekend, because him and Michelle McCool, and she was a surprise entrance, I think last year, wasn't it, for the women's one? So I mean, that could always be a thing. Could you imagine if Undertaker is a surprise entrant to the Royal Rumble,
and R-Truth eliminates him?
It'd be the best. It'd be the absolute best.
That actually would be that'd be pretty good. That's how you get R-Truth over. You talk about that for the next 10 years, and he's good. He can retire off that.
So here's the other matches, and then we'll talk very quickly about who do you think wins the Rumble. Let's go there first.
I really can't make a prediction because I don't know what they're doing with it yet.
Right.
I feel like we're going to get an announcement tomorrow or on Monday Night Raw, or whenever you guys are listening to this, the Raw before Rumble. I think that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that there's gonna have to be a few more names thrown in there before you're like, oh, here we go.
But randomly, if I just have to throw out a name right now, Drew McIntyre wins again.
I mean, obviously it's going to be one of the guys at the top of the card who's going to do it.
Mhm.
Let's further some storylines. You talk about this match now real quick,
Yeah.
I don't think anything really happens in the match that has Kevin Owens and Logan Paul in there. I don't think that is. I think that Kevin is going to go out there and do what he does best, and that is work. And Logan Paul is going to still be the champion at the end of this.
Guaranteed.
I think the story going into this is from this match, right, that you have with Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, and LA Knight, because LA Knight has now come out and said that if Logan Paul doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut, he's going to, are you ready for this? He's going to lay down the law, Bradie. That's what he said. Yep. LA Knight, said he's going to lay down the law. Yep.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
He said
that's what he said. He said it.
Does he not know that we have a trademark on the term of the law in all professional wrestling demos?
So I think that there's the story coming out of that. I think that this 4-way at the Rumble is a really nice way to keep the belt on Roman.
Yeah.
Going into Mania, obviously.
I'm taking back. I'm taking that back. Yeah.
And I think
the law. Yeah.
LA Knight obviously has, a story with Logan coming out of that. And I mean, if you had to, boom, there it is. Randy Orton and AJ Styles. I'd love to see that matchup. There's no doubt about it. Right. So it's obvious, but not obvious, because this is the WWE and they've been known to crazy switch things up at the last minute, because you never know what kind of injuries are going to happen.
Our truth. Can I hear y'all? Our truth. Yeah.
I would love nothing more than to see our truth. This is what I'm saying. Our truth needs to win the Rumble. Okay. And then his challenge.
My heart.
His challenge is against Michael Cole for the announcing spot to sit at the table.
All right. Okay.
Or who's the girl that does the ring announcing?
I don't know.
I
have no idea. I don't know, but you can't give our truth to live, Mike.
Why?
You can't give him a live mic for 3 hours on Mondays.
Could you imagine our truth introducing everybody that came down?
After a week of it, he would just start going into business for himself. This is why he gets over. You got to love the guy. Okay, so moving on from the UFC has a bright future. WWE has a bright future. Future. The other companies inside of professional wrestling have a future that could be bright, but they need to fix the light bulb. They need to change that light bulb. They need to screw it in really tight, and they need to get back on track and head into the direction they were heading in previously, because I think things will be all right for them too. So before we roll this ride out, let's play some more commercials and pay some bills.
Are you a member of the BC Bud Tender community? Tether Buds is bringing their unique experience to the West Coast for the first ever event in Vancouver, BC. January 24, 2024, Tether's Vancouver event will be the ultimate Bud Tender experience, featuring industry-leading brands, gift bags, and great vibes. Plus, complimentary food, refreshments, and music. Media, influencers, and other industry professionals are encouraged to join the fun. January 24, 2024 at Beaumont Studios. Get your tickets today at fanatickets.com.
TotalSportCards.com, Canada's #1 stop for WWE, AEW, UFC, NHL, NBA, and NFL hobby boxes. Total Sport Cards always delivers the most sought-after products with the best price points in the market that you can find. Keep your collection up to date with TotalSportCards.com. TotalSportCards.com, proud sponsor of Sunday night's main event.
And we're back, of course, and it would be not a complete show unless I asked you, Bradie.
What's up, my friend?
You've heard of Podstars, right?
I've heard of Podstars.
I mean, and everybody else has heard of Podstars by now, right?
Everybody's hearing about. I'm telling you, the word on the street. Podstars is the place to be. Podstars.net.
What is
Podstars.net is a collective group of celebrities, influencers, heroes, just anyone you can think about that has something to share. Educational people. You got a little bit of everything on Podstars. And one of the things that you can do with Podstars is subscribe to their service and book these celebrities for your own podcast. To me, that is actually one of the easiest things ever, because you know as well as I do, even if you know you have celebrity friends, trying to message them and get them on your pod is a pain in the tuchus. But with podstars.net, you don't got to worry about any of that now.
And it's podstars.net?
Podstars.net.
Now that's spelt a little bit differently, though, isn't it?
It's with a Z or a Z, depending on what country you live in.
Which side of the border are you at depends on how you say the letter Z. Podstars.net. All right. I'm going to check it out later.
Yeah, go do it, please.
Perfect. Now, before we get to checking that out, you know what we are going to do?
What are we doing?
We're going to wrap this whole thing up, my friend.
Let's roll this ride out, sir.
And then what we'll do, for those of you, like we said earlier, if you are listening to this on your subscribing channels, either Spotify, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, any of those podcast providers, if you're listening to this there, then you are going to hear a seamless, absolutely flawless transition into an interview, the TID's Kick in the Head segment this week, where I get to sit down and talk with former WWE superstar Tyler Breeze, now just Breeze, running a school called Flatbacks with a former AEW superstar and personal friend of ours, Sean Spears. We sit down for, as you know, a good length of time and find out all of his story and some very interesting stuff that you've probably never heard before.
Yeah, there were some gems dropped on there that I've never heard before.
So if you're watching this on our YouTube, then as soon as we're done here, by the time we're all done, you're going to finish this. Boop, it's going to come out. Bam. Video's good to go, and you can just click on that and watch it as well. See, we are taking care of all of your needs here on the Law Live Audio Wrestling, and you know what we don't have? We don't have other people to push those buttons for us.
Nope.
So we got to do all of this stuff ourselves, ladies and gentlemen.
Nope, they're busy now.
So what I'm going to ask of you right now, as we pass around this donation plate, all you have to donate is a subscribe or a like or a comment. That's it.
Testify.
That's it. Right? We're not asking.
All right, audio listeners, you stick around here. Chris, to our YouTube watchers,
yeah,
anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Listen, you know where you can check it all out. You can check it all out over at Tid Talk on YouTube. That's where I can have all of my stuff. You can also, of course, the Law Live Audio Wrestling on all of your podcast providers. The Law Live Audio Wrestling on YouTube. Myself at Notorious TID, as well as a shout out to all of our good friends over at SNME Radio and anybody else that puts up with us on a weekly basis. That's it for me.
That's it for me, my friend.
One more time. Tuck your chin.
I fought the Lord,